Today I wanted to talk about one of the most common questions asked by new pin traders, and that is, what is the difference between a scrapper pin and a fake pin? So most of the time in the pin trading community, scrapper and fake are kind of used synonymously to describe any pin that seems to be counterfeit or really junky quality. However, these two terms do mean two different things. So an actual scrapper pin is a pin that is produced in a Disney authorized facility, but it's a factory second that was meant to be thrown out or scrapped. So these would be the pins that aren't passing quality control due to large paint dips, flaws, or other types of errors. And instead of these pins being thrown out or scrapped, employees there will take those pins and then resell them. These pins were never meant to be sold and are thus not authentic Disney pins. However, I don't actually focus too much on the scrapper pins so much as I do on the fake pins for reasons I'll talk about in a moment. So a fake pin is a pin that is counterfeit, produced in a not Disney authorized facility using stolen or copied molds. These counterfeit pins are typically always really junky in quality. You'll often find that they're made of much thinner, lightweight metal. However, there can be some more high quality fake pins out there. There are fake pins of hidden Mickey pins, rack pins, up to very high-end limited edition pins. But generally speaking, where you'll find most of these fake pins are all of those cheap pin lots on eBay and Amazon. So these pins are counterfeits. A chunk of them may be actual scrappers, but most of them are flat out fakes, which I'll also show some examples of. And so when you're pin trading with other people, you want to make sure that your pins are authentic and that they aren't scrappers and fakes. The only problem is that there's no one way to figure out whether a pin is fake or not. Most of the time you have to be able to compare the pin you have to a pin that you know is guaranteed authentic. That is pretty much the best way to figure out. So I typically tend to focus more so on the straight up fake pins than I do on scrapper pins, because I find that it's getting harder and harder to be able to figure out what is a scrapper due to Disney's own really poor quality control right now. In the past, things like really bad paint dips, really scratchy paint, other kind of low quality features like that would indicate a scrapper pin, but many of Disney's own pins that are bought directly from these parks now kind of have these flaws. I've come across a number of people online who will buy a pin directly from Disney and then ask if it's a scrapper because something is wonky with the enamel on it, but that is an authentic pin. It's just that Disney's quality is pretty bad. And so that's the reason why I care more so about the just flat out fraudulent crummy fakes than things that are technically classified as scrappers. I wanted to give an example of some authentic Disney pins that have some scrapper-like qualities. This is a Pandora mystery pin that I unboxed here on my channel direct from the sealed bag. As you can see right here, there is a super large paint dip in it. Typically, the enamel on a pin should be perfectly smooth and not having dips, but this pin directly from the pouch has a huge paint dip in it, and that is just Disney's poor quality control. Another pin that I purchased myself directly from the Disney parks is this Indiana Jones pin, and this pin has the quality of really scratchy paint. This paint in the background is super scratchy that you could almost kind of file your nails against it. And so it's nice when pins have really nice shiny smooth enamel, but thanks to Disney's downward quality, not all pins do. And so that's why I don't talk so much about scrappers as I do about the outright fake, counterfeit, worthless junk pins. Like they come in those eBay and Amazon pin lots, which, oh boy, I just love. If you're buying one of those super cheap pin lots on eBay and Amazon, every single pin you have in there is going to be a counterfeit pin, unless maybe you're lucky and you have some scrappers in there, which maybe are a little bit closer to authentic. I've also come across quite a few people online who will buy these pin lots and say, we found maybe 5 pins out of, a 30 pin lot that were definitely fake, but the rest seemed real. I'm sorry to say that the rest are not real. If you're finding like even 5 pins in those cheap lots, that's pretty much an indicator that they are all fake. It's just that you probably were able to identify the ones that were really bad quality, like something is really jacked up with them, but the other ones are fake too. And I have a few examples of some fake pins that I wanted to show and share what the qualities of those are like. This pin here is an outright counterfeit pin. It's a counterfeit of an old cast lanyard series, which was the predecessor of hidden Mickey pins. And one way right off the bat that I can tell this pin is fake is that it is super thin and lightweight. It feels like a super flimsy metal, like it's not even a real metal. Pretty much all authentic Disney pins should have a little bit more heft to them, unless there's something special with a pin, like there is a stained glass element which would make it lighter. The other way I can tell this pin is fake is by the wrong coloring on it. So I'm going to put up a picture of what the authentic version looks like here, and you can see on the pin where it is missing some colors, where it is colored wrong, that this was a mold that was either stolen or copied and made incorrectly. So this pin is just outright junk. This pin, I feel like, is a really good example of a super easy to identify fake pin, because you can see Miko is missing his pupil there. Fake molds tend to be missing some pretty important details. This one is an example of a fake limited edition pin. This is a pretty simple fake limited edition pins, but there are many fake versions of much more complex and higher value pins that are from like the Disney soda fountain, some pins from WDI. But this one is one that you would find in those eBay pin lots, and the telltale for this one is on the back right here with the text limited edition. So this pin here, it's a little bit hard to come across, but it should say limited edition of 500, but it says LMTEDEDTIONO of 500, just like with no spaces, missing some letters, super junk fake pin. You can see on this pin here, it has super streaky paint on it. That is really a hallmark of the fake pins. And I showed how on the authentic pin, there was some kind of scratchy paint, but typically on authentic pins, you won't find paint that has this many scratchy lines to it. And the coloring of this pin is super off. It's like a vibrant neon yellow. Again, you can just feel that the metal is super lightweight junk, and it is a straight up fake pin. So in sum, scrapper pins are pins that are produced in Disney authorized facilities, but they were the factory seconds that were supposed to be thrown away. And fake pins are produced in non-authorized facilities using stolen and copied molds and are worthless junk. So even though these words do mean two different things, you are most of the time going to find people using the term scrapper to talk about any pin that looks fake, which is why I try to use the term fake when actually talking about fake pins, because there is a difference, and I find it's getting harder to distinguish what actual scrapper pins are. But if you want to avoid getting fake and scrapper pins, there's a pretty simple thing to do, and that is don't buy any of those super duper cheap pin lots on eBay and Amazon, because every single pin in those lots is either going to be a fake and scrapper, and more often than not, they are all going to be the straight up fake counterfeit pins. But if you do end up with any fake or scrapper pins in your collection and you like it, that's perfectly fine to keep it. The only thing is, if you're going to be pin trading, and especially pin trading with other pin collectors, you do want to be sure that your pins are authentic. A lot of times people come back saying, well, it's just a piece of metal. But if you're collecting things and you're doing it seriously as a hobby, you'd want to make sure that you have the authentic version. Like if you're collecting baseball cards, you don't want a counterfeit Thomas Wagner card. Or if you're really into designer bags, you don't want a Coach purse bought off the streets of New York. So a lot of people do like to take the authenticity of their pins pretty seriously when trading, but if you're just getting into trading, more experienced traders are often more than happy to help out, figure out whether any of your pins may be counterfeit or not. My best trick, as always, for figuring out whether or not you have a fake pin is to compare it to a pin that you know for sure is authentic, that was purchased directly from the parks or whatever source that Disney pin came from. Overall, Disney pin trading and collecting is a really fun hobby. The scrappers and fakes kind of put a damper on it sometimes, but more often than not, it's the people in the pin trading community that are really awesome, and you just gotta say no to fakes. So hopefully this was informative and clears up one of the most common questions, and I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please do consider subscribing if you'd like to see more Disney and pin related content. And I hope you have a Zip-a-Dee-Doo Disney day!